When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: Summer of Fear. User: PCsus03. Posted April 17, 1997.
June of '72 hit hard in East Hollow. It was unusually hot, a kind of heat that made the pavement sweat and warped the boards on the trailer steps. By July, 5 kids had gone missing, just vanished. No screams, no bodies, not even a damn footprint. One by one, they slipped out of their yards or off the sidewalks and never came home. The first was Elisa Graham, 10 years old, went missing on her way back from the community pool, wrapped in a faded beach towel with daisies on it. The second was Billy Markham, a quiet boy, good at checkers and bad at remembering to tie his shoes. Then it was the Garcia twins, both gone the same night. Cops didn't know what to do with that one. 2 at once was a pattern they couldn't explain, not unless it was something organized, something bad. And then the last was my little brother, Danny. I remember the morning like it was fused to the inside of my skull. Mom was in the kitchen trying to get the old window unit to spit out more than lukewarm air, and Danny had on his favorite t-shirt, one of those soft cotton ones, too big for him, with the sleeves rolled up and grass stain across the front. He wanted to follow me to the corner store for candy, but I told him no, said I'd be back in 10. He pouted, sword in his waistband like always, and marched off with his chin up and his chest out like he thought he was the king of East Hollow. That was the last time I saw him. By the time I came back, the neighbor was yelling Danny's name, the back gate was wide open, and Mom's face was already turning white. We all knew the pattern by then. The town was panicking. The cops were knocking on doors and forming search parties. Folks were putting together theories. A serial killer, cult, some weirdo who hated kids. People started buying locks and floodlights. Moms wouldn't let their kids walk alone, even to the mailbox. But I knew it wasn't a real-life person. No, I'd seen her, the girl in the ribbons. The stories about her went back years. She walked the railroad tracks behind the woods, always alone, always quiet. They said if you saw her once, she'd forget you, twice, and she'd remember, 3 times, and she'd take something. We all talked about her growing up. Some kids thought she was a ghost. Others thought she was just a myth some teen made up to scare us. But I'd seen her. She wasn't a story, not a dream. She was real. I saw her the week before Danny vanished, riding my bike home as the sun was going down, a sky that thick orange that makes everything feel off. There was nothing but the buzz of crickets in the air, and then there she was, standing dead center on the tracks back to me, still unmoving, ribbons tied up and down her arms and legs like she was wearing some kind of twisted rainbow. One long one hung from her braid, brushing her back like a tail. The breeze picked up and her ribbons fluttered, light as thread, but she didn't turn around, didn't move. I kept riding, but my stomach turned over like I'd swallowed something wrong. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to give life to the story. But when Danny disappeared, it clicked. I remembered that one of the ribbons had a pattern I knew by heart, green cotton, soft and familiar with a tear near the seam. It was a piece of his shirt. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I ran back to where I saw her, heart pounding so hard it blurred my hearing, and I waited until the sun went down and the bugs started shrieking, and sure enough, there she was, standing again, watching. Only now, I saw more clearly. The ribbons weren't just ribbons. They were pieces, scraps of kids' clothes, little corners of t-shirts and pajama pants and shoelaces and terry cloth. I saw a strip of pink terry towel I remembered from Lisa's beach wrap, a checkered bit of fabric from the Garcia boys' Cub Scout uniform, a red shoelace that was definitely from Billy's favorite sneakers. Each one was tied carefully, lovingly, like a girl playing dress-up with her doll, except the dolls were gone and all that was left were the trimmings. And that's when I noticed she had a new one. Danny's. That strip of soft green cotton, frayed on the edge where it must have been ripped, was tied around her wrist. I recognized it like I'd stitched it myself. I took a step forward, gravel crunching under my foot, and she turned. Her face was not right. Not scary like a monster, just wrong, like a drawing someone tried to erase but left behind too many lines. Her eyes were wide and black, not pupils, just full black orbs. Her mouth was sewn shut. A violent ribbon tied into a perfect bow right where her lips should have been, but I heard her anyway, right in my head. One voice, many voices, male, female, old and young, all tangled together. One more for the braid. I ran. Couldn't see, couldn't think. Just ran until I threw up behind the gas station and passed out in the alley. They found me the next morning and told me it was grief. Told me to stay inside, to rest, but I knew. They never found Danny, never found any of them. Eventually, the search parties died out. The town quieted down, and life moved on. East Hollow tried to forget. They boarded up the rec center. They built a fence between the park and the woods, but I remember. To this day, I walk those tracks when the dreams won't stop, and I see things. Flash of ribbon in the trees, whispers in the wind, the sound of a train that hasn't run in 30 years. And last night, I saw her again, still standing, still waiting. Only this time, there were 2 ribbons in her braid, and I swear to God, one of them was mine.
Subject: we never lived in that house. User: H3GH122. Posted November 14th, 1998.
We moved into 22 Overland Drive in August of '97. Just a little 3-bedroom off the highway, white vinyl siding, sagging porch steps, a chain link fence out front like a rusted cage. My wife Lisa said it looked humble. I said it looked like a cigarette stain, but we were broke and the landlord didn't ask too many questions. Lisa tried to make the best of it. She hung curtains, lit candles, played Carole King too loud in the kitchen while she baked things we didn't have ingredients for. She always smiled for the kids, even when she cried after they went to bed. That's the kind of mom she was. Hopeful and bone-tired, but still trying. Our youngest, Owen, was 4. He had this squeaky cartoon voice and carried a mangled stuffed monkey named Beans everywhere like it was an extra limb. He was sensitive, would cry if a balloon popped too loud or if you yelled, even jokingly. Morgan was 11, a wallflower with sharp eyes, smarter than I ever was. She read horror paperbacks she wasn't supposed to and listened to her dad's old cassette tapes. She had this nervous habit of chewing her thumb knuckle when she was thinking. And me, I was out of work, painting houses under the table for cash and pretending I wasn't terrified of how close we were to losing everything. But we had each other. That had to count for something. That lasted 6 days. The first thing was the closet. Owen started saying someone was whispering to him from inside it. At first, we brushed it off. Nightmares, new house, adjustment period. But he'd stand in the doorway in those stupid dinosaur pajamas, a lip trembling, and whisper, "Daddy, the lady in the wall says she wants out." First time, I laughed. Second time, I checked the closet. Third time, something brushed the back of my neck when I stepped inside. I didn't tell Lisa about that part. A few nights later, I woke up to Owen sobbing. He had wet the bed. He hadn't done that in a year, and when Lisa tried to comfort him, he shoved her away and screamed, "You're not my mommy." It broke her. She locked herself in the bathroom and cried for an hour while I sat with Owen and held him until he calmed down. He kept saying he was sorry, that she made him say it. Well, Beans went missing 2 days later. We tore the house apart. That monkey had been with him since he was born, and Lisa finally found it, sitting upright inside the oven, arms folded neatly in its lap. The oven was off, but it was warm, like someone had just stepped away. Still, we stayed because we couldn't afford not to. That's when the house got loud. There was scratching in the walls late at night. At first, I thought rats, but it wasn't like that. It was slow, deliberate, like fingernails dragging in long strokes behind the plaster. Then came the knocking, always in threes, always from inside the house, sometimes from inside the bedroom vent, once from the back of the hallway closet door. Lisa tried to laugh it off, but she stopped sleeping through the night. Morgan said it sounded like someone tapping out Morse code. She started writing it down in one of her notebooks, and I didn't know until I found her in the basement one afternoon, crouched next to the furnace, reading the code aloud like a prayer. But her voice wasn't hers. I burned that notebook in the backyard. Owen just got worse. He stopped eating, stopped speaking unless we asked him a direct question. His eyes were always dark and sunken. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, but he didn't cry, just stared at the walls and sometimes muttered into his hands. When I leaned in once, trying to hear what he was saying, he looked right at me and whispered, "She told me your name." I asked who she was. He said, "The one who lives behind your eyes." Lisa begged me to call a priest. We weren't religious, but she was desperate. But when he came by, the front door slammed shut before he even stepped onto the porch, and he paused, just staring at the house. Then he got back in his car without knocking. 3 days later, we read in the newspaper, he died. A heart attack mid-sermon. After that, I stopped sleeping in the bedroom. Something about it felt wrong, too still. Like the quiet wasn't empty, it was waiting. I crashed on the couch, and one night I woke up to Morgan screaming. Her mattress was flipped, shoved into the corner like it had been tossed by a bulldozer. She had 13 bruises down her back, finger-shaped. Lisa accused me of doing it. I couldn't even find the words. The next morning, all the framed photos of Lisa were scratched out. Not torn, not burned, just her face scraped away with something sharp like a key. She left that day with the kids. She told me to come with her, begged me, but I didn't. I told myself it was because I wanted to end it, wanted to understand it. But the truth is, I didn't want it following them. Somewhere deep down, I thought if I stayed, it would stop. It didn't. It just got worse. The whispers turned to sobbing. The sobbing turned to low, bubbling laughter. I'd turn off the lights and they'd flicker back on. Faucets ran red. Not blood, but not water either. Just thick enough to leave stains. I heard pacing above me in the attic, even though there wasn't a floor up there, just insulation and beams. And then, one night, the house changed. I walked to the bathroom and felt the floor stretch. Like the hall had grown longer behind me. I turned and the living room was distant, faded. The ceiling sagged like lungs. I tried to run, but the walls pulsed, pushing back. I didn't make it far, and that's when I saw her. Not Lisa, not Morgan, her. She stood at the end of the hallway. Well, no, not stood. She floated, twitched really. She was shaped like a person, but her body looked carved from something dry and yellow. Her joints bent the wrong way. Her hair hung like cobwebs soaked in grease. Her eyes were wet holes that went too deep. And when she opened her mouth, no sound came out. But I heard her all the same. "You were never in this house," she said. "You brought it with you." I blacked out. When I woke up, the door was open and it was morning. Light poured in like nothing had ever happened. The birds were chirping. The air smelled like cut grass. I walked outside and never went back. Lisa doesn't talk to me anymore. Morgan draws pictures of the old hallway, and Owen won't sleep unless every closet door in the new apartment is shut. But I haven't told them the worst part. Sometimes, when I close my eyes for too long, when the room is just a little too quiet, I see the hallway again, that same impossible stretch, that same breath held in the walls, and some nights, I swear, I feel fingers just behind my eyes.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.